Welcome back! I've somehow turned into a cartoon over Thanksgiving. Ready to learn more coding? I hope so. I hope you are super ready. You're wearing your sunglasses, 'cause here we go! Last time on Dragon Ball Z! Last time on coding. Goku learned about how to multiply virus cats. And then this happened. Just kidding. Okay, being serious. What is a variable? Well, a variable, that's a term that we use in math and coding a lot, and it means something variable, able to vary. Okay, so it's changeable. It's not constant. It's it's a number that can change. Okay, that's what a variable is. Variables are used in programming and in algebra and math, and so in algebra, a lot of times variable represents like an unknown number. So here we have an equation 5 plus x equals 7. Okay, then you do the algebra and you realize, oh, okay, x equals 2. But variables are numbers that can be changed on the fly in coding. They're not fixed, so they're represented by usually the letter x or a different letter, like y or z too, but usually it's x. Here's a question for you, okay? Think about this pretty hard, all right? What could we use to make a game with gravity? What could we use to make a game with gravity? Well, variables! So here's an example. So when start clicked, there's a forever loop. If up arrow pressed, then basically you're going to set a variable, which is y velocity, to basically be going to 6, which means they'll be going upwards in the y direction, and then over time, the part of where the gravity comes in is so change constantly this same variable, y velocity, right here, to negative 0.02. So basically every frame the game is going, this number is decreasing by 0.02. So that adds up quick, and that simulates gravity right here. And then when they hit the ground, repeat until touching color ground, and then set velocity to 0. So that's a little complicated at first, but we'll get into it more. Here's another question for you. This one's really tough. You ready? Think about it really hard. How would you add a score to your game? I'll give you a second to think about it. Variables! So when, for example, here we go. When start flag clicked, set variable called score, okay, to 0. And then forever, if you do something like blow up an enemy or whatever it is to get a point, get a coin, or whatever you do in the game, then change your variable by 1. So it goes up 1. Here's a final question. This is like the hardest one, right? How would you make a boss monster have a changeable number for health? Well, you think, oh, maybe it could be variables, right? Oh, yes, it's variables. So, for example, here's a boss monster. He's got a big number for health. Raw, he's scary. When start arrow clicked, set the variable you made called boss health to say like 100 or 6,434 or whatever it is. And then forever loop, if something happens, like you attack the boss, right? Then decrease boss health by 1. Okay, so change it by -1. And if boss health equals 0, then what should happen? Well, then you should win, right? So then you make a win condition. Well, what should we do today? What are we going to do? Well, let's follow a tutorial I made to make a platformer game, and using variables you can simulate gravity. Okay, and then if you want to get really deep into it, you can use Piskel to make custom sprites, and you can even use Beepbox to make custom sound and music for your game. And let's get started. Here we go. All right, to get started, go back to Seesaw. And you want to click on the assignment. Here's the assignment. It says next. Click here to get to Scratch. Click sign in. Okay, so we go to Scratch. And here's Scratch. And again, sign in is up here, up at the top. We click sign in, and now hopefully you've been using Scratch since I last taught you, and hopefully you, or not, if not, hopefully you wrote down your username and password like I told you a couple months ago now. Hopefully you can put your username and password in, and you click sign in, and then you can go to create, and you can get started making this project, okay? But we're not actually quite ready yet. We need to go back to Seesaw again, but let's make this window part of the size of the screen, okay? So let's do the half and half method again like we did with the medical technology lesson or the virus lesson. So we go back here again, and it says, what's the next instruction say? It says, okay, so then click this link to open my platformer tutorial instructions, okay? And there it is. So it's right below. And so we click that and it opens it up. Now you can drag this tab. You should be able to drag it out. Okay. And you should be able to make it, different sizes. And so half and half about is good. And you can zoom in on different parts of this instruction sheet. Okay. So for example, if I wanted to see this better, I hold down the control button. If I want to see this instructions better, for example, if there's like a part with the code that's hard to see, like right here, and I want to see it better, well, you got to hold down the control button, okay? So I'm holding down control, and then I need to scroll up with my mouse. Now this might be difficult to do on the Chromebook. You might need to do 2 fingers on the screen and move them up or something like that, or just expand them out. But basically this zooms in on a window. Holding control and scrolling on a mouse zooms in. Okay, so I can see, oh, okay, so that's a -3 there. That's a regular 3. Anyway, so you want to get it to good size, about covering most of the screen there. Maybe one more. There we go. And you want to start at step 1. Okay, so we scroll down to step 1. And now, let me give you another little example here. So when I made this tutorial, I was using the older version of Scratch. So some of these things you might see are a little different. For example, the new Sprite button doesn't really look like that. It looks totally different on Scratch. This is the new Sprite button on the new Scratch, okay? But I'll show you as we go along. But you should be able to get the hang of it and see what's different and what's not. Open Scratch, and we did, and delete the cat. Okay, so we don't need this cat right here. So we can just click the X, ta-da, and he's gone, okay? Now, click the new Sprite button, ta-da, okay? And this is where you can actually, if you're planning ahead, you can make a sprite, okay? If you've done Piskel before, you can just, you know what to do, or you can go back and look at my other lesson, and you can make a sprite of your own. Let's say you want to make a platformer person, okay? Ta-da! And maybe they're jumping, or maybe they're running, or whatever they're doing, okay? And here's your sprite, and you can export them and make sure the size is big enough. Okay, yep. And you can even make multiple frames. Okay, so let's delete that. Let's go duplicate frame, and let's go like this. So let's make him look like he's jumping, okay, or something. Or running really weird like. Okay, there's his legs going crazy. That's just a really quick example, but you can make a really cool detailed sprite look like it's actually running or jumping or doing something like that. And you can export as a GIF, okay? And so you can download as an animated GIF. After it downloads, we go back to Scratch and watch this. So instead of just picking a random sprite, which you can also do, you can also upload a sprite. Okay, and we go to our downloads, okay, and where's our new Piskel? There it is, and it's a GIF file, and we open it, and look at that. There's our sprite we just made. Our little person is there. And if we go to costumes, look at this. He's got a jumping costume too from Piskel. How cool is that? Now, okay, so we just did adding our sprite. Good, we're on to step 4 already. Next, program your character so it can move. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I'm half and half on the screen here so I can see my code I need. And I'm going to go and search for it in these different color columns, okay? Now the colors might be slightly different, but they're about the same, okay? So for example, this darker yellow is actually the events, so that's bright yellow, okay? You just gotta get, that's really only the color that's changed. So dark yellow is bright yellow here, and then orange is still these forever loops. So we want when start clicked, and we want to get the rest of the code. So I'll just skip to that. Okay, I've got my code in here from here to here, and it should be all right. I made sure to put a little minus on that little change x by and left this one positive, and I made this turn to the right and turn to the left. Now I put these turns in originally because I wanted the sprite to be a ball, okay? And that was the only kind of animation I was going to have. But let's see what happens if we just test out our game, okay? So let's, step 5, click the green arrow and play test your character. Okay, so here we go, step 5, press play, and let's see what happens when we use the left and right arrow. Oh my goodness, he's rolling around, okay? So that's great if your character's a ball. Okay, our character is not a ball, it's a person, so I'm going to get rid of those. But if you are going to use a ball sprite, you can leave those in and it's cool. It's got a little rolling animation as he moves. Let's go on to the next step, step 6. Okay, so we want to design a cool background and a deadly area. It says click paint new backdrop button. Okay, so we go to here. So choose paint a background and it'll take you here, and let's get started. You can also do the control scroll to zoom in and out on this part to see your window better, but this is the white box is basically our game window. Now I want to fill this area in, so we can go to square, fill, okay, and right now we have an outline of 1 thickness, okay, but let's make it kind of grayish, okay, so I brought my saturation down to 0, and I'm going to choose a color in the middle of the brightness for gray, okay, I want to make like a dungeon. So we got to make a rectangle that surrounds our whole game window. Now you can draw in here and do whatever with the paint tool and doing different color types, like maybe some lines or something. And as you can see, as I'm painting, you can see where they go on the game screen themselves. If you make a mistake, Control Z gets rid of those mistakes, okay? But I'm just going to make some quick lines, and we're going to have like a kind of a quick dungeon, okay? So dungeon. You can definitely also make your own background in, say, like Piskel, okay? Piskel is great for making cool game art. That means backgrounds and of course sprites. So here is another background that I made in Piskel, and I uploaded it here. So I made a Piskel background. I chose dark red, and I'll get to that in a bit. That's our deadly zone, okay? And I turned the scale up as far as it would go, and I downloaded it, and then I went back to Scratch, and I went to upload backdrop, and I chose my new Piskel, and I upload it. But look, it's not the right size. It doesn't fill our whole game screen. Well, you need to go and click select and make it bigger, and then resize it and reposition it, okay? So like so. And that's how you make a custom background in Piskel. But you don't have to do that, like I was saying before. You could just draw a background real quick, and to get your deadly zone, okay, this is important. You gotta go make another rectangle. Let's make our deadly zone bright red, okay? So saturation up, color all the way red, and no outline. This is important, okay? So if you make a rectangle with a background with outline that has a number here, it's going to have a little black line, and that's going to affect our game later. You'll see, because of colors are important for this game. So let's get rid of this rectangle, and let's draw a new rectangle with no outline number. See, no outline. So we want to make a big rectangle, red rectangle across the bottom, covering the whole game screen. That's our deadly zone, like, you know, hot lava. Now let's make some platforms, okay? So there's multiple ways you can do this step, okay? You can actually do this part without making sprites. So you can do this straight away in the backdrop. And I think this way is a little better, but it's kind of harder to test. You can go back here and create new sprite, paint a new sprite, make a platform. So you up your outline, and there you have a big platform. Ta-da! Sprite 1 platform. We can name it platform. And now, with this platform, okay, we can take this and we can move it around and we can position it, and we can even change how big it is, okay, by changing its size. So let's make it half the size, right, like that. And we can move it around and position it how we want in our game. And we can even duplicate it and move it around like this. Duplicate, duplicate, duplicate. Okay, so there's two different ways to make platforms. One of them, you can move your platforms around. The other one, you cannot, okay, if you draw them onto the background, but that's okay. Either way works. But now that we've got some platforms, our person, he's a little big for our game, I think. So let's make him a little smaller. So you gotta click your person, and you can just change the size right here. Let's make him half the size, see if that's good. That's a little better, okay. We can start him on this side, let's say, and maybe let's make him even smaller. Let's make him 25. Now, we can start to maneuver these platforms around, okay? And you can start duplicating the platforms. And, oh, that's weird. That's platform 2, huh? Okay, if that one's 2, then that one should be 3, and that one should be 4. And there you go. And we've got our platforms starting to get set up. Okay, let's make one more duplicate. And you can make this game as hard as you want, with the platforms as small as you want. So we just did step 10, 11, 12. Drag your platform to where you want it. Make it bigger or smaller by the way I showed you, not like this. And make your character jump and fall with gravity. Click on your character sprite, then scripts or code, as it is in this, and add this code. So we go back to our person, our character sprite, which I didn't name yet. Let's just call him character. And we want to start to put in this code. So let's look around. Okay, we need another when start clicked, and I'll just put this in and cut to that. Okay, so I'm partway through making the code, and I've got something that's a little strange that I want to make sure you guys know about. So it says if key pressed, space is pressed, and we're touching a color. Well, where's that green and? How do we get this piece? Well, you got to go to the operators, okay? And here it is. So piece and piece, and you put that into the if. Okay, so I've got my code in. It's important that this touching color is black, okay? You gotta have it the same color as your platforms, okay? Because that's what's sensing, that's what's doing the sensing right here. We're sensing if we're touching the ground, which is platforms, which are black. So make that color black by either using the dropper on your platform, or you just bringing the brightness all the way to 0. Now, it says, let's see, step 14, test your game. See if everything works. Oh my goodness, look at that. And we can jump, and we already can jump and move and jump, and it's a platformer already. Oh my goodness, we made a platformer game, and it was that quick. Wow. But wait a second, where was the variables? Mr. K, where's the variables? Ha! Well, this is actually not where we get into variables yet. This is a super simple version of simulating gravity. Then go up to the top and click on Share, and then copy the URL in the address bar. Now, if you want to stop here, that's okay. This is kind of a long lesson, but if you want to learn more, continue right ahead. Let's go on to step 15. Add this code to your character sprite to make it go back to the beginning if it touches the deadly zone. Okay, so we need this code. So if he touches the red color, then he teleports back. He's like he dies, right? We'll skip ahead to when this code is done. So find your code, add it in right here. And now for touching color, we want this to be, so here's a little note that says the color here has to be the same color as the deadly zone. So to change, make it that's the same exact color, you click on here, you click the eyedropper tool, and you click right on your color of your deadly zone, and it eyedroppers that on there. Now let's test it again. So we can jump, and oh no, we fall in, and he teleports back. Oh, but if he gets caught halfway into the the platform, he kind of sticks there. Let's call that a feature instead of a bug, huh? Okay. So skipping on, designing your level and moving your platforms around. Well, you can duplicate the platforms like I showed before, and you can make a bunch of different platforms. You can even put in some code here. It says to make your game harder, you can choose a platform or two and make them basically go back and forth or up and down, depending on if that's change Y or change X. So if you want a platform to move and your character will have to jump on a moving target, and then you can put that code into something. And then you want to add a goal and create some variables. So we go to make a new sprite, paint a new sprite, and we can pick a color. We can make it green. I kind of like green. Let's do a green portal. So we go, okay, and there's our goal portal. We can call it portal, or you could call it exit, whatever you want. And let's go back and let's position this where we want our end of our game to be. Okay, now this is a really simple example. You might want to have your character jump all over the place and get up to a portal that's far up in the top or something, right? And then now we can make a couple variables. Okay, this is getting into having your character have lives. So we want to go to variables, and we go to make a variable, and our variable, we can make one and we can call it lives. Okay, for all sprites is okay. Now we can make another one called timer. Okay, and we've got two variables, lives and timer, and you can have them checked or unchecked and be visible on your game. I think it's a good idea to have them visible for now. Now, technically, you could just have this be pretty much done, and you can have a little code saying "good job" or "game over" when you hit this portal. But let's make our game even more interesting. Okay, so add this code to your goal sprite to make you win, it says. We want to click on our goal sprite, and so we're coding our goal here instead of our character, right? So click your goal, and we can add this code. So let's skip ahead to that. Okay, so we got our code in. So we have our timer. Basically, this sets our timer to 0 when we start the level, and then we every second we up the timer by 1 second. Let's go on to step 23. If you want to have limited lives, add these two teeny bits of code to your character sprite's jumping function. Okay, so we want show and set lives to 3. Okay, so we go back to our character, and we find our jumping ability, and that was, where was that? That was right here. Okay, so we want to add show and set lives to 3. So variables set lives to 3 lives. Next, finish lives and add the game over screen, and then we're basically done, right? So you also need to change your deadly zone code in your character sprite from this. So we have this basic deadly zone code to this. Okay, so we need to add a few things. But we do broadcast, and we want to change our message to a new message, and game over. Okay, and then we want to stop all. So stop all. Ta-da! Cool. Okay, we fixed our basically our deadly zone code bit. Now, finally, let's make a game over screen backdrop, and then we're going to basically, you can make it however you want. You can make it in Piskel and upload it, or you can make it in Scratch. And then finally, you want to add these 2 bits of code under your backdrops script, okay, to be able to switch to a game over screen. And that's it. And look at that. After that, test the game, make sure it's works, and you're pretty much done, okay, unless you want to add some custom music. If you want to add a lot more, you can add sounds to your game. So you can go plus down here, and you can go upload sound, okay, and you can find your sounds you made. For example, in Beatbox or whatever, you can make a game over sound, and that was not one that I made, but that's a classic game over sound. And you can add it right into your game, and you can have it be a sound that activates with certain conditions met in your code. Okay, so like for example, actually we can go to the stage. When I receive game over, you want to play sound, game over. And now you can make these sounds in Beatbox, and you can make some background music. You can make all sorts of things, and you can put them straight into your game like I just showed, okay, by going to add and upload sounds, or add Sprite and upload Sprite, and you can add GIFs, and it puts multiple costumes in and all sorts of things. It's very cool. And basically, now your game is done. Now, you can add a lot more. You can kind of follow even more steps, and you can make a more complicated game. For example, one that has more realistic gravity like this. If you follow the next bit of code that I'll put at the end, and you can have multiple levels, and you can make your game a lot more interesting. So when you get to your end, it'll teleport you to the next level. You can have moving basically obstacles and all sorts of cool stuff in your platformer. I hope you guys had a little fun doing this, and that you might have been a little inspired to make some cool game assets, as in sound or art. And I'll see you next time. If you want to get into more advanced gravity, I will show you a quick clip on how to do that here. So here's an example of how we can get gravity to work realistically in a game. Okay, so we're going to need a little bit more code, but basically, forever, if we are pressing the up arrow, or jumping basically, and we're touching the ground, then we want to set a variable to a number. Okay, and then we're going to change our velocity that we also set, okay, change our position by that same variable, okay. So we set a variable that's basically our speed and how much we're either going up or falling, and we change our position by that based on that every frame. So in the forever loop, as the game is progressing, we change that every frame, and then we make basically a caveat, or an alternative that says, well, also if we're touching the ground, okay, then we set our speed we're falling to 0, okay. And finally, if we're not touching a color of the ground, if we're basically in the air, then we want to constantly have gravity affect us, okay. So we alternate, we add a little bit of negative to this variable every frame that we're not touching the ground. Okay, so let's build this in the game real quick, in our other game. Okay, and here we have it. So we've got our code, and it looks just like this, and it says, there it is. So you can pause the video now if you're confused at all, and you can always change your gravity by this little number here. Bang, bang, boom. So change y velocity by negative point number, and watch what happens when I press play. He's jumping, and he's jumping all over the place. So you got a realistic gravity with your platformer.